a more robust presence everywhere. You're probably hearing a lot about the southern border these days, and yeah, that's happening a lot. But while the cameras are staying fixed on Texas and Arizona, something very different just happened on the northern front. President Trump has thrown down a challenge that Canada did not see coming. Ottawa is struggling to respond. And in the last few days, Trump raised tariffs on Canadian goods to a staggering 35%, the highest trade penalty ever imposed on the northern border. But here's the catch. This move is about forcing Canada to confront its weakest point, a border that for decades was called the longest undefended in the world. And at the center of this storm is Prime Minister Mark Carney, who now finds himself cornered again. The man who promised stability is now facing the most serious test of his leadership yet. It's all coming from Washington. You see, for years, Canadians like to boast about having the world's friendliest border with the United States. You know, friendly Canadians 4,000 miles without a single wall, barely patrolled in many places, and treated as little more than a formality. That open border also created an open invitation. Drug cartels, human smugglers, and even terrorist networks quickly learned how to exploit the gap. What most people don't realize is that the cartels adjusted after Trump's first term. When the southern border became harder to cross, they simply just moved operations north. Mexican groups began setting up fentanyl labs inside Canada, quietly manufacturing poison just a few hours' drive from American cities. The same border also became a hub for human trafficking. U.S. Border Patrol reports show that more than 70% of illegal crossers caught up north already had criminal records. The rest were often individuals who entered Canada on flimsy visas before slipping south. And yet Canada did not do much there. Successive governments starved the border of funding. Mark Carney continued the same pattern. He didn't change anything. Canada, underinvested in its military, relied on U.S. protection and looked the other way as the northern frontier grew more and more dangerous. And this careless behavior gave Trump the opening. The reason that he needed Trump's response was straight out of his playbook. Put pressure on until the other side cracks. Back in February, he hit Canada with a 25% tariff. Ottawa brushed it off at first, thinking it was just a tough talk thing. They clearly still don't understand Trump. But then Trump doubled down. Within months, he raised it to 35%, the biggest trade penalty Canada has ever seen. And here's the thing. This wasn't about money. Trump tied the tariffs to a national emergency order on fentanyl and border security. The move gave him the legal authority to bypass the usual trade rules and put real weight behind his demands. He had three goals. First, make Canada finally secure the border and cut off the drug pipelines. And second, fix the trade imbalance that's been costing American jobs for years. And third, push Canada to step up on defense, especially in the Arctic, where Russia and China are getting more active. The one exception, Alberta's oil and gas. Trump left those tariffs low. A clear nod to a province that's already threatening to break away from Ottawa. That single carve-out sent a message. Trump was serious and Carney was out of options. Once Trump turned up the heat, Ottawa had no choice but to move within just a few months. Surprise there, Canada rolled out the largest border buildup in its history. Over 10,000 new personnel were deployed to the northern frontier, along with helicopters, surveillance drones, and high-tech scanning towers. The total price tag is more than $1.3 billion, a number that stunned even longtime border officials. And it wasn't just manpower. Canada started installing X-ray machines, chemical analyzers, and round-the-clock monitoring systems. What once was the easiest, like I said, a formality type of border was incredibly relaxed, was suddenly looking more like a militarized zone. The results came quickly. Illegal crossings dropped by 90%. That's good. Asylum claims through backdoor routes fell by 80%. Visa fraud investigations jumped six-fold, shutting down loopholes that smugglers had used for decades. Here's the part that Carney can't spin, though. None of those moves were his idea. They were a direct response to Trump's pressure and threats. Ottawa is not leading anything. It's just reacting to the situation. Trump has come up with a solution, and he implemented it. Put the pressure on Canada, and all they can do is just play along to the tune of his fiddle. Well, I think what the president did was by using the threat of economic sanctions and the usage of tariffs to force these concessions as it relates to border security. I think what's interesting, Tom, very quickly, is this again is another example of the Trump administration elevating border security and immigration to the highest priorities of the United States. But more specifically, Mexico promised to deploy National Guardsmen to the northern border there to try to, crack down on the flow of drugs into the United States, and Canada made similar concessions as it relates to border security. So interesting in the sense that the administration's demands to stop the tariffs were focused pretty much exclusively on issues related to border security and immigration. And for a country that prided itself on being independent from Washington. Yeah, that shift is shocking to some and unsurprising to others. Carney wasn't setting the agenda. He was struggling just to keep up. And everybody when they think of Trump's border policies, they think of Mexico. But in his speeches since returning to office, he's made it very clear the Canadian border is on the menu too. And that's a big problem. Why? About $2 billion worth of goods cross the U.S.-Canada border every single day. We're talking about auto parts, farm products, energy shipments, even basic groceries. If Trump orders tighter inspections or throws in additional new rules for cross-border shipping, suddenly those trucks aren't moving in hours. They're stuck in line for days, maybe a week or two. That doesn't just mean headaches for truckers. It means higher shipping costs, factory shutdowns, and shelves going empty in both countries. Canada's economy depends on just-in-time delivery, and even a small slowdown at the border is terrifying across entire industries. Canada, very much so. They've allowed millions and millions of people to come into our country that shouldn't be here. They could have stopped them, and they didn't, and they've killed 300,000 people last year. My opinion, have been destroyed by drugs by fentanyl. The fentanyl coming through Canada is massive. The fentanyl coming through Mexico is massive, and people are getting killed and families are being destroyed. And yet Ottawa is acting like this isn't even on the table. Last week, the White House announced fresh tariffs on Canadian steel, aluminum, and even certain farm goods. Like Washington made it very clear, Canada had a choice. Sit down and renegotiate trade terms or pay the price, and here's where it all got very bad even for Carney. Instead of standing his ground, he ignored the threat. He told reporters that Ottawa would not be forced into talks and that Canada had other partners to lean on. Yay, that sounds great for a day. But, like within hours, American tariffs were already hitting and Canadian exporters started panicking. Steel shipments to the U.S. dropped almost overnight. Farmers warned about losing access to their biggest market. And while all this was happening, Carney's government still refused to send negotiators to Washington. To me, it looks less like strategy and more like stubborn pride. From the talks with Canada and Mexico so far, are you not seeing the progress that you wanted in order to... I don't see it at all. No, not on drugs. We've done a great job. If you look at Tom H. Mann, he's been incredible, and Christie, they've done a great job in terms of the border, but the drugs continue to pour into our country, killing hundreds of thousands of people. We're losing substantially more than 100,000 people. Dead. They're dead. The families are destroyed after that happens. So it's not just that's the ultimate, but the families are absolutely destroyed. The pressure shook the entire Canadian economy, and Carney knows it. Retaliation was the most obvious move. Slap tariffs back on American goods. Play the same game. But when Trump raised the stakes, Ottawa hesitated. In the past few weeks, Canada quietly dropped most of its retaliatory tariffs on U.S. products. They even got rid of the digital services tax that had angered American tech companies for years. And while Trump kept increasing the penalties, putting on more pressure, Carney stopped escalating in return. That's a big signal that you don't have a spine. Ottawa is just running out of cards to play inside Canada. The frustration is boiling. Alberta sees the carvo Trump gave them on energy and is openly talking about independence again. Business leaders are warning about rising costs, and Carney, who built his career on being the steady hand in a crisis, now looks very weak. No different than Trudeau, and it's very simple. Trump is setting the terms, and Canada is just adjusting after the fact. Carney's strategy of patience and quiet diplomacy is not working, and it's collapsed. In its place is a struggle, a painful struggle to avoid further punishment. For all of Ottawa's talk about standing firm, the reality is hard to ignore. Trump is winning this fight. And that's all that I have for you today, guys, from us here at the Zone Media Network. Feel free to head on over to American Zone for the latest American news, where you will see me there also at times. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment down below. Love you all, and I will see you in the next one.